Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about control statements. And all I did was I created a new project called control statements, and I created a new class. I'm just putting the examples right inside the main method because this is just a quick demonstration. So the first thing that you need to learn about control statements is the if statement. An if statement has the keyword if followed by a Boolean expression. If there's only one statement that is executed if the Boolean expression is true, the curly braces are not required. You will notice that I will always put in the curly braces because I like to always block out what's being executed. No matter how many statements are in there, one or more statements, I will always put the curly braces just because it makes it very clear for me to understand what's being executed if this Boolean expression turns out to be true. All right, so in an if statement, you have if, the Boolean expression, curly braces, and inside the curly braces, you place the statement or statements that are executed if the Boolean expression is true. Now, in this example, you'll see that I also have something called an else if statement. In the else if statement, you can have as many else if statements as you would like. And what you do is you say else, the keyword else, followed by the keyword if, in the Boolean expression. If the if Boolean expression is not true, meaning it's false, then it's going to test the else if. Only one of the if statements or the else if statements may be true. As soon as one of those Boolean expressions is determined to be true, the statements inside are executed, and the code automatically jumps to the last element or the piece of code immediately following the if else block. The else statement is executed if neither of the if nor the else if statements are true. So if this Boolean expression turns out to be false, this Boolean expression turns out to be false, and remember, I could have as many of these else if statements as I want. So I could have 10 else if statements inside of there that can all be tested. If any of them are true, then those statements inside are executed, and I'm immediately jumped down to the start executing here location. However, if none of the if-else if statements are true, we execute the else. The else is just basically, okay, nothing above was true, so here's what we're going to execute. Okay? And once those statements are executed, then code execution immediately follows the else. All right. The comparison operators that we have are equality, which are the two equal signs. Remember to make them double equals. If you put one equal sign inside the Boolean expression, it is a valid Java statement, but does not work the way that you think. It is not doing a comparison, it's doing an assignment statement. That is a valid statement. So make certain that you use those double equal signs. Not equal to is bang equals or exclamation mark equals. That's not equal to. This is less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. In addition, sometimes you need to have more than one comparison inside a Boolean expression. So if you want to compare two things and two things need to be true, or two or more things need to be true in order for the expression to be true, you're going to use an AND statement. Right? In an AND statement, which is the two ampersands, every expression must be true in order for the Boolean expression to evaluate to be true. So if I have a cake and I have some icing, then I'm going to make a birthday cake. All right, I have to have a cake and I have to have icing in order to make a birthday cake. The OR, which is the two pipes, it's the key usually above the enter key. It has the backslash as the lowercase. You have to hit shift and the backslash key in order to make this work. It's the two pipe keys, and only one expression needs to be true. So if it's raining or it's snowing, then I'm going to take my umbrella. It can either be raining or snowing or both in order for me to take my umbrella. Very often you'll see these as part of what we call truth tables. Now you could have as many ands in here as you want. You could have as many ors as you want. So a true and a true is true. A true and a false evaluates to false. A false and a true evaluates to false. A false and a false evaluates to false. Right? That's for and. For or, only one has to be true. So you could have a true or a true, which evaluates to true, a true or a false, which evaluates to true, a false or a true, which evaluates to true, and a false or a false still evaluates to false. All right, so let's look at an example here. Suppose that I had a couple variables here. X is 20, let's say y equals 10 initially, and letter equals q. All right, so in the first expression here, I'm going to say if x is less than or equal to 10 and y is greater than or equal to 10. Now, we're looking at the and operands here, so both statements must be true in order for this to execute the statement inside of the if, which says part 1 is true. All right, so if we look at this, is x less than or equal to 10? No. So let's make x 2. Is y greater than or equal to 10? Yes. Right, so x is 2 now. So it's less than or equal to 10. Y is greater than or equal to 10. So if I execute this, it's going to say part 1 is true. And it does. All right, now even if this happens to be true, which it is, this else if, notice that it did not say that part 2 is true. It only said part 1 is true. Why did it do that? Because as soon as it finds one that's true, it stops checking the else if statements or the else statements down below and jumps to the execution immediately following the else statement. All right, so now if we switch this around a little bit, make this 20. Let's make this 2, and let's change this to x equals 10. All right, so now we look at it and we say, does 2 equal 10? No. So as soon as one of those is false, because this is true, because this is an and sign, I mean, we do something called short-circuiting. In short-circuiting, basically, because there's only 2 expressions here, if the first one evaluates to be false, we're not even going to bother checking the next ones. All right? So that's why we're focusing just on that portion there. And that's just a shortcut to keep the compiler and the execution of the program running more quickly. Now this time it should say part 2 is true because x is less than or equal to 10 and y is less than or equal to 10. So let's run it. And it says part 2 is true. Right? Now what if I put in a statement here, another one that says and letter equals A. Now how many things need to be true in order for this Boolean expression to be true? Well, they're all ampersands, so all of them need to be true. So is x less than or equal to 10? Yes. Is y less than or equal to 10? Yes. But does letter equal A? No. So in this case, it should change it to be part 3 is true. And it does. All right. Now, what if I changed this to be an or statement? Well, realistically, what I really want it to say is probably something more like this. I want it to check these 2 things or this third thing. So if x is less than or equal to 10 and y is less than or equal to 10, then that's going to evaluate to true. A true or anything else is going to be true. All right, so this should say part 2 is true, which it does. Why again? Well, this part is the if statement evaluates to false. This portion executes to be true. All right, now what if I changed this to be 20 and I put a Q in here? Well, is x less than or equal to 10? No. All right, because x is now 20. So that's not going to exit, so that's going to be a false. A false and anything else is going to be false. So this whole expression here evaluates to false. But you'll notice that the next thing that we have is an or statement. So a false or, does letter equal Q? Well, in this case it does. So when I execute this, part 2 is true. All right? The other thing that I wanted to quickly show you was something called a nested if statement. In a nested if statement, you have to have multiple things to be true before the other item is even checked. So for example, if x equals 20, only if that's true do I say if letter equals Q, whoops, and I did the bad equals equals. Then I could do a system.out.println nested if true. All right, now I could have an else portion of just one of these. So in this case, I could say else outer, let's do a system.out.println outer if is false. Let's say that this one, inner if, both if statements, true. All right, so again, if x is equal to 20, which it is, then it says, okay, well that was true. Let's check this one now. Is letter equal to Q? If both of those are true, then it's going to say both statements are true, which it should. It's going to do the one above it as well. Where is it saying that I have a state? Oh, I added an extra curly brace here. All right, so it's doing the part 2 is true from the if statement above, and now it's saying both if statements are true. All right, now what if I changed just this inner one? Well, why did it only print one thing here? The part 2 is true from the if statements above. Well, this is actually true. Remember, this else goes with this if statement. Right? So that if statement is true, and it's checking in here, but it's not doing anything. Well, it's not going to execute this else because this if was true. So what if we say if x equals 2? Ah, now it says, hey, that outer if is true. All right, what if I wanted to put I could put an else in here to deal with our first situation. The outer if is true, but inner if is not. Okay? So now, if we put this back to 20, is x equal to 20? Yes. But does letter equal a? No. So it should say outer if is true, but inner if is not. Which it does. All right, so it's good practice to play around with these a little bit and make certain that you understand how to use the ors, you understand how to use the nested if statements, and you have a good concept of how if statements should work, because ifs are very, very, very frequently used. All right, so in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about switch statements.